It was January 19th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when a dream so vivid and disturbing drove me from my bed to the ancient forest clearing 15 miles outside the city, and there, surrounded by towering Douglas firs that had witnessed centuries of human history, their bark rough and deeply furrowed like the faces of prophets, their branches creating a cathedral ceiling against a sky so clear the stars seemed close enough to touch, Jesus appeared before me with an intensity I had never experienced. Not in prayer, not in meditation, not even during the most powerful moments filming The Chosen, and he spoke words that shattered everything I thought I understood about what's coming. Jonathan, what I'm about to show you will terrify you. A storm is coming that most of my church refuses to see. They're looking in the wrong direction, they're preparing for the wrong battle, and time is running out. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. You've been chosen to receive this warning. The very fact that you're reading these words right now, at this exact moment in history, is not coincidence. It's divine appointment. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. Leave your prayer requests in the comments below. I don't care how impossible your situation seems. I don't care how long you've been waiting. Leave it there, because what I'm about to share with you will require us to be in unity, to be in agreement, and I will be praying over every single request. This isn't just a video. This is a gathering. This is a moment. And if you're serious about your faith, if you're truly hungry for what God is doing in this hour, subscribe to this channel right now. Not tomorrow, not when you get around to it. Right now. Because YouTube's algorithm is designed to hide content like this from people who need it most. They don't want you seeing messages that challenge the comfortable, lukewarm Christianity that's put the Western church to sleep. But if you subscribe, if you hit that notification bell, you're telling the algorithm and the spiritual realm that you're a true believer, that you're not here for entertainment, you're here for encounter. Many of you know me as the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. That role has been the greatest honor of my life, but it's also been the greatest responsibility. When you spend years studying the Gospels at that depth, when you're constantly asking, how would Jesus say this? How would he look at this person? What would his heart be feeling? Something happens to you. The line between performance and reality begins to blur. Not because I'm confused about who I am, I'm just Jonathan, a broken man who needs Jesus every single day, but because when you pursue him that intensely, he meets you. He responds, he shows up, and he's been showing up in ways I never expected. Let me take you back to that forest clearing. Let me tell you exactly what happened. The dream that woke me wasn't peaceful. I was standing in a massive stadium, think Super Bowl sized, and it was filled with Christians, millions of them. They were all facing a stage where celebrity pastors were performing, literally performing, lights, smoke machines, the works. And everyone was so entertained, so caught up in the show, that no one noticed the stadium walls were cracking. Fissures were spreading like spider webs through concrete, the ground was shaking, and outside those walls I could see darkness gathering. Not normal darkness, this was thick, intentional, hungry darkness. And it was about to break through. I woke up at 2:33 a.m. with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My small apartment felt suffocating. I tried to pray, but the words wouldn't come. I felt this overwhelming compulsion, and I know that word gets overused, but I mean it literally. I felt physically compelled to go to this place I'd discovered months ago during a particularly difficult season. There's a forest preserve about 15 miles from where I live. Most people don't know it exists because it's not well marked, and the access road is easy to miss. I'd found it last October when I needed to get away from everything. The pressure of the show, the weight of people's expectations, the constant noise of social media. I'd driven aimlessly and ended up there, and I'd found this clearing. It's not large, maybe 40 feet across, but it's surrounded by these ancient Douglas firs that must be 300 years old. Their trunks are so massive that 3 people couldn't wrap their arms around them. The forest floor is covered in a thick carpet of moss and fallen needles that cushions every step. And in the center of the clearing, there's this flat rock, about the size of a dining table, worn smooth by time and weather. I'd been there maybe 5 or 6 times over the past few months, always alone, always seeking silence, always hoping to hear God's voice more clearly. So at 2:47 a.m. on January 19th, 2026, I found myself driving through empty streets, then down that unmarked access road, parking my car, and walking the quarter-mile trail to the clearing with nothing but my phone's flashlight to guide me. The temperature was 38 degrees. I remember because I checked before I left, wondering if I was crazy for going out in the middle of the night. I was wearing jeans, boots, a heavy jacket, and a beanie. My breath came out in visible clouds. The air smelled like pine and earth, and that particular crispness that comes with deep night in winter. The forest was absolutely silent. No wind, no animals, no distant traffic sounds. Just my footsteps on the trail, muffled by moss and needles. When I reached the clearing, I stopped at the edge. The sky above was overwhelming. Living in the city, even on the outskirts, you forget what the night sky actually looks like. But out there, away from light pollution, it was like someone had thrown diamonds across black velvet. The Milky Way was clearly visible, a river of light flowing across the heavens. The stars weren't twinkling. They were burning, steady and bright and ancient. I walked to the center rock and sat down. The stone was cold even through my jeans. I turned off my phone's flashlight and let my eyes adjust to the darkness. After a few minutes, I could see surprisingly well by starlight alone. The massive trees surrounding me were dark silhouettes, their branches creating intricate patterns against the sky. Jesus, I whispered, I don't know why I'm here, but you woke me up. You brought me here, so I'm listening. Please, speak to me. Nothing. Just silence and cold and the weight of the night. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, starting to feel foolish, starting to think maybe it was just a bad dream and too much coffee and my imagination running wild. I was about to get up and leave when the air changed. I don't know how else to describe it. The temperature didn't drop, but suddenly I was aware of a presence. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, my skin prickled, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Jonathan. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It wasn't loud, but it filled the clearing. It resonated in my chest, and I recognized it immediately, not because I'd heard it before with my physical ears, but because my spirit knew it, the same way a child knows their father's voice in a dark room. I looked up, and he was standing on the opposite side of the clearing. Jesus, not glowing, not floating, not like some cheesy religious painting. He looked solid, real, physical. He was wearing simple robes, dark in the starlight. His hair was dark and fell to his shoulders. His beard was full, but it was his eyes that undid me. Even in the darkness, they were luminous. Not with physical light, but with something deeper. With knowing, with love, with an intensity that made me want to run toward him and run away from him at the same time. Lord, I managed to whisper. My voice was shaking. He walked toward me, his footsteps making no sound on the forest floor. When he reached the rock where I was sitting, he didn't sit. He stood, looking down at me, and his expression was unlike anything I'd ever seen on a human face. It was love and grief mixed together, joy and sorrow, hope and heartbreak. Do you know why I brought you here? He asked. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Because what I'm about to show you, what I'm about to tell you, cannot be contained in four walls. It cannot be reduced to a sermon or a podcast or a comfortable conversation over coffee. It requires this. He gestured to the forest around us, to the vast sky above. It requires you to remember how small you are, how big I am, how serious this moment in history is. A breeze suddenly moved through the clearing, though the air had been perfectly still moments before. It rustled through the branches above us, creating a sound like whispered warnings. Jonathan, my church is asleep. Not all of it, not the remnant, but the vast majority of what calls itself my body in the Western world is asleep, comfortable, distracted. They're arguing about worship styles and political parties and building campaigns, while the enemy is positioning his pieces for the greatest assault on faith this generation has ever seen. His voice was gentle but firm, not angry, but urgent, like a father warning a child about a danger they can't yet see. What kind of assault? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jesus looked up at the sky, at the river of stars flowing overhead. Do you see that? He asked. That's how many voices are crying out to me right now. Prayers, desperation, people who are barely hanging on. And do you know what most of my church is doing? They're creating content. They're building brands. They're arguing about theology while people are dying, spiritually, emotionally, physically dying right outside their doors. He looked back at me, and the grief in his eyes was so profound I felt tears start to stream down my face. In the next 18 months, there will be an event. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is, because that's not the point. The point is that it will shake everything. It will separate the wheat from the chaff. It will reveal who has been building on rock and who has been building on sand. And Jonathan, so many of my people are building on sand. They think they're prepared. They think their faith is strong, but they've never been tested. Not really. They've been comfortable for so long they've forgotten what it means to need me desperately. The breeze picked up, colder now. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, but I couldn't look away from his face. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I want you to warn them," he said. "I want you to tell them what I'm showing you. Not to create fear, but to create urgency. Not to make them panic, but to make them prepare. Because the ones who are prepared, the ones who have built their lives on me, truly on me, not on programs or personalities or religious performance, they're going to shine like stars in the darkness that's coming. They're going to be my hands and feet. They're going to see the greatest harvest of souls in history. But the ones who are unprepared," he paused, and the grief deepened, "they're going to fall away. They're going to be confused and angry and bitter. They're going to blame me for not protecting them from something I clearly warned them about." Suddenly, the clearing filled with light, not from any natural source. The stars were still the only physical light, but with a supernatural radiance that seemed to emanate from Jesus himself. And in that light, I saw visions, flashes of images that seared themselves into my mind. I saw churches, beautiful buildings with state-of-the-art sound systems and comfortable seating, completely empty, locked, abandoned. I saw Christians, people I recognized from social media, people with large platforms, confused and angry, shaking their fists at heaven, demanding to know why God had let them down. I saw families torn apart, not by persecution from outside, but by division from within. Parents against children, siblings against siblings, all because when the pressure came, their faith wasn't rooted deeply enough to hold them together. But then I saw something else. I saw small groups of believers, in homes, in parks, in secret places, gathered together with a fire in their eyes I'd never seen before. They were praying with authority. They were moving in power. They were seeing miracles, healings, salvations. They were becoming the church that Jesus always intended, not a building, not a program, but a living, breathing, dangerous body of believers who had learned to depend on him completely. I saw people who had been lukewarm suddenly ignited with passion. I saw prodigals coming home. I saw the lost being found in the most unexpected places. I saw a harvest so great that the workers could barely keep up. "Two paths," Jesus said, and his voice pulled me back from the visions. The supernatural light faded, leaving only starlight again. "Every single person who calls themselves mine is going to have to choose, and they're going to have to choose soon. Will they be part of the remnant that stands firm, or will they be part of the crowd that falls away when things get difficult?" I was trembling now, and not from the cold. "Lord, how do they prepare? What do they need to do?" He smiled then, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. "That's why I brought you here, Jonathan. That's why I'm going to meet you here for the next 3 nights. I'm going to show you, I'm going to teach you, and then you're going to tell them not with your own words, not with your own wisdom, but with what I give you." He reached out and placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm, solid, real. "But I need you to understand something. Not everyone is going to receive this message. Some will mock you. Some will call you a false prophet or say you're fear-mongering. Some will accuse you of using my name for attention. You need to be prepared for that." "I know," I said, though my voice shook. "Do you?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "Do you really? Because it's one thing to play me on a television show, Jonathan. It's another thing entirely to speak for me in a generation that doesn't want to hear hard truth. Are you willing to be misunderstood? Are you willing to lose followers? Are you willing to be criticized by people whose approval you valued?" I thought about that. Really thought about it. I thought about the comfortable life I'd built, the respect I'd earned, the platform I'd been given, and I thought about what he was asking me to risk. "Yes," I finally said, "because if you're saying it, it needs to be said. I don't care what it costs me." He nodded slowly. "Good, because it will cost you, but what you'll gain is worth infinitely more than what you'll lose." The breeze died down completely. The forest became silent again. Jesus stepped back, his form beginning to fade like morning mist. "Tomorrow night," he said. "Come back tomorrow night at the same time. I'll be here, and I'll show you more." "Wait," I said, standing up quickly. "Can't you tell me more now? Can't you?" But he was gone. The clearing was empty. except for me and the ancient trees and the river of stars overhead. I stood there for a long time, maybe 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened, trying to convince myself it was real and not some elaborate hallucination brought on by stress and lack of sleep. But I knew it was real. I knew it in the deepest part of my being, the same way I knew my own name, the same way I knew the sun would rise in a few hours. Jesus had appeared to me, he had spoken to me, and he had given me a mission. I walked back to my car in a daze. The forest was still silent, but it felt different now, sacred, like I was walking on holy ground. When I got home, I didn't go back to bed. I couldn't. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and my Bible and a notebook, and I wrote down everything I could remember, every word, every image, every sensation, and now I'm sharing it with you, because you need to know what's coming. You need to know that Jesus is speaking, he's warning, he's preparing a people for what's ahead, and the question is, are you going to be part of that remnant? Are you going to be one of the ones who stands firm when everything shakes? Or are you going to be caught off guard, unprepared, building on sand when the storm hits? Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that clearing. Jesus said he'll be there. He said he'll show me more. And I promise you, I'll share everything he reveals. But I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to get serious. I need you to stop scrolling through your life like it's entertainment. I need you to recognize that we're living in the most critical moment in modern history, and what you do in the next few weeks and months will determine whether you're part of the problem or part of the solution. Leave your prayer request below, subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and most importantly, start preparing your heart. Start asking Jesus to show you where you've been building on sand. Start asking him to reveal the areas where you've been comfortable and complacent, because he's coming back. Not yet, but soon. And before he returns, he's going to shake everything that can be shaken so that only what's unshakable remains. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you what else he showed me. I'll tell you about the second encounter, and I promise you, it's going to challenge everything you think you know about what it means to be ready. Don't miss it. Your eternity might depend on it. I barely slept on January 19th. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Those eyes that held eternity. That expression of love mixed with grief. And those words kept echoing in my mind. A storm is coming that most of my church refuses to see. I spent the entire day in a fog. I tried to go about my normal routine, answering emails, reviewing scripts, making phone calls, but nothing felt normal anymore. Everything felt trivial, meaningless, like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while ignoring the iceberg dead ahead. I kept checking the clock, 9 a.m., 11 a.m., 2 p.m., 6 p.m. Time moved like honey in winter. All I could think about was getting back to that clearing, getting back to him, hearing what else he needed to tell me. By 10 p.m., I couldn't wait anymore. I knew he'd said 2:47 a.m., the same time as the night before, but I felt this pull, this magnetic draw to go early, to be there, to wait for him if necessary. I dressed in layers this time, thermal underwear beneath my jeans, 2 shirts under my heavy jacket, thick wool socks, insulated gloves. I'd checked the weather forecast, 32 degrees with a chance of light snow after midnight. I grabbed a thermos of hot coffee and a flashlight with fresh batteries, and I headed out. The drive felt different this time. The first night I'd been operating on instinct and compulsion, barely aware of what I was doing. But tonight, I was fully conscious, fully present, and honestly, I was terrified. What if he didn't show up? What if last night had been a one-time thing? What if I'd somehow misunderstood, and I was about to spend hours alone in a freezing forest waiting for an encounter that would never come? But deeper than the fear was a hunger, a desperation. Because if last night was real, and I knew in my bones it was, then I needed more. I needed to hear everything he wanted to tell me. I needed to understand what was coming and how to prepare. I reached the access road at 11:43 p.m. Almost 3 hours early. The parking area was empty, just like before. Just my car and the darkness and the wall of trees marking the trailhead. I grabbed my flashlight and thermos and started walking. The forest at night is a different world. During the day, it's beautiful, peaceful, serene, the kind of place you'd bring a date for a romantic hike. But at night, especially deep night when you're alone, it becomes something else. Every shadow could be hiding something. Every sound is amplified. The darkness between the trees is absolute, impenetrable, the kind of darkness that makes you remember humanity spent most of its existence afraid of the dark for very good reasons. But I wasn't afraid. Not of the forest anyway, because I knew who I was going to meet there. When I reached the clearing, I was struck again by how the space opened up to the sky. The cloud cover was thicker than the night before. I could only see a handful of stars peeking through gaps in the clouds, but there was enough ambient light that once my eyes adjusted, I could make out the shapes of the massive trees surrounding me, the flat rock in the center, the carpet of moss and needles covering the ground. I walked to the rock and sat down, opened my thermos and poured some coffee. The steam rose in visible wisps, and the warmth felt good in my hands. The temperature was dropping fast. I could feel it in the air, that particular quality that comes before snow. And I waited. 11:50 p.m., midnight, 12:30 a.m., 1 a.m. I prayed, sometimes out loud, sometimes silently. I sang worship songs quietly. I read scripture on my phone. I journaled. I waited. At 1:47 a.m., exactly 1 hour before the time he'd appeared the night before, the first snowflakes began to fall. They were small at first, delicate, drifting down through the canopy of branches above, visible in the beam of my flashlight like tiny stars falling from heaven. Within minutes, the snowfall increased, not a blizzard, but steady, purposeful. The flakes were larger now, landing on my jacket, on the rock beside me, on the ground around me, beginning to dust everything with white. The forest grew even quieter. Snow has a way of muffling sound, of creating a hushed reverence. I turned off my flashlight and let my eyes adjust again. The snow made everything slightly brighter, each flake catching and reflecting what little light filtered through the clouds. And then I felt it again, that change in the air, that presence. Jonathan. I spun around. He was standing at the edge of the clearing, exactly where he'd been the night before. But this time, he looked different. Not in his physical appearance. That was the same. But in his demeanor. Last night, he'd been gentle, almost careful with me, like someone breaking difficult news to a loved one. Tonight, there was an urgency in his posture, an intensity in his eyes that made my breath catch. Lord, I said, standing up quickly, I came early. I hope that's... I know, he said, walking toward me. I've been here since you arrived, watching you wait, watching you worship. That's good, Jonathan. That's what I need from you. That willingness to wait, that hunger. Because what I'm about to show you tonight is harder than what I showed you last night, and you're going to need that foundation of worship to bear the weight of it. He reached the rock but didn't stop. He walked past me, toward the far side of the clearing, and gestured for me to follow. We walked to the edge where the massive Douglas firs stood like ancient sentinels, their trunks disappearing up into darkness and falling snow. Jesus placed his hand on one of the trees. The bark was deeply furrowed, rough, scarred by centuries of weather and time. How old do you think this tree is? He asked. I don't know, I said. 300 years, maybe more. 347 years, he said. It was a seedling when the Pilgrims were still establishing their colonies. It was already a mature tree when America declared independence. It has stood through wars, depressions, cultural revolutions, technological transformations. It has weathered storms that would have destroyed younger, weaker trees. Do you know why it's still standing? I shook my head. Roots, he said simply. Its roots go down more than 50 feet into the earth. They spread out in every direction, intertwining with the roots of the other ancient trees around it. These trees don't stand alone. They stand together, and their roots go deep. He turned to face me, snowflakes catching in his hair and beard. That's what I'm trying to tell my church, Jonathan. What's coming will uproot everything that isn't deeply rooted, everything that's shallow, everything that's built on emotion or entertainment or social connection instead of on me. Do you understand? It's not enough to attend church. It's not enough to know Bible verses. It's not enough to have a platform or a ministry or a reputation. When the storm comes, and it is coming, the only thing that will keep you standing is how deep your roots go. What kind of storm? I asked. You said last night there would be an event. Can you tell me what it is? He was quiet for a moment, his eyes searching mine. Then he said, Come, I'll show you. He walked back to the center of the clearing, to the flat rock. He stood on it, and suddenly the rock began to glow with a soft, golden light. Not bright enough to hurt my eyes, but enough to illuminate the entire clearing, to make the falling snow look like gold dust drifting down from heaven. Look, he said, and he raised his hands. The air in front of him shimmered, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. And then images began to form, not on a screen, not like a movie, but three-dimensional, solid-looking, hovering in the air like windows into another reality. I saw a map of the United States, and I saw darkness spreading across it like spilled ink. It started in the major cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, and spread outward, consuming everything in its path. But this wasn't physical darkness, it was spiritual. I could see it for what it was: deception, confusion, fear, anger, division. This is what's already happening, Jesus said. This is the current state of the nation, but most people can't see it because they're looking at the wrong things. They're focused on politics, on economics, on social issues, and yes, those things matter, but they're symptoms, not the disease. The disease is spiritual. The enemy has been systematically dismantling the foundations of faith in this nation for decades, and now he's ready to make his final push. The image shifted. I saw churches, thousands of them, and I watched as they began to divide. Not over theology, not over doctrine, but over issues that had nothing to do with the gospel. I saw congregations splitting down the middle. I saw pastors abandoning their pulpits. I saw believers turning on each other with a viciousness that made me sick to my stomach. This is what's coming in the next 18 months, Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with sorrow. A great falling away, not because of persecution from outside, though that will come too, but because of compromise from within. The church has been flirting with the world for so long that when pressure comes, when they have to choose between me and comfort, between truth and acceptance, between holiness and popularity, most will choose wrong. But why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why would they choose wrong? These are people who love you, people who've served you for years. Do they? He asked, and the question hung in the air like the falling snow. Do they love me, or do they love what I can do for them? Do they love me, or do they love the community, the feeling, the identity that comes with being part of a church? Jonathan, you can't truly love someone you don't truly know. And most of my church doesn't know me. They know about me. They know the stories. They know the theology, but they don't know my voice. They don't know my heart. They've never learned to recognize my presence because they've been too busy with programs and performances. The images shifted again. Now I saw individual people, faces I didn't recognize, but somehow I knew they represented millions. I saw a woman in her 40s sitting in her car in a church parking lot crying. She'd just walked out of a service where the pastor had compromised on a fundamental truth to avoid offending people. She was devastated, disillusioned, wondering if anything she'd believed was real. I saw a young man in his 20s, sitting alone in his apartment, scrolling through social media, seeing Christians attacking each other with more venom than they'd ever directed at the lost. He was a new believer, barely a year old in his faith, and he was thinking, if this is what Christianity looks like, I want nothing to do with it. I saw an elderly couple, married for 50 years, who'd served in their church for decades. They were watching their children and grandchildren walk away from faith, and they were heartbroken, confused, praying desperately, but seeing no change. These are the casualties, Jesus said softly. These are the ones who will be wounded by what's coming, not because I want them to be wounded, but because the church has failed to prepare them. The church has fed them milk when they needed meat. The church has entertained them when it should have been training them. The church has made them comfortable when it should have been making them strong. Tears were streaming down my face now, freezing on my cheeks in the cold air. What can we do? How do we stop this? You can't stop it, he said, and the finality in his voice was crushing. It's already in motion. The seeds were planted decades ago, and now the harvest is coming. But Jonathan, listen to me. This is important. You can't stop it, but you can prepare people for it. You can warn them. You can help them build deep roots before the storm hits, and you can be a light for those who will be looking for truth in the darkness. The images faded. The golden light from the rock dimmed slightly. Jesus stepped down and walked to where I was standing. He reached out and wiped the tears from my face with his thumb, and his touch was so tender, so full of compassion, that I almost collapsed. I'm not showing you this to destroy your hope, he said. I'm showing you this because hope without truth is just wishful thinking, and I need you to carry both, truth and hope, warning and promise. Because yes, there's a falling away coming. Yes, there will be casualties. Yes, the church as you know it is going to be shaken to its foundations. But Jonathan, what's going to emerge from that shaking is glorious. He turned and gestured to the forest around us. The snow was falling harder now, accumulating on the ground, on the branches, transforming the clearing into a winter wonderland. Do you know what happens to a forest after a fire? He asked. It regrows, I said. More than that, he said. It becomes stronger, healthier, The fire clears out the dead wood, the diseased trees, the undergrowth that was choking out new life, and what grows back is vibrant and strong. That's what's coming for my church, a purifying fire. It's going to be painful. It's going to look like destruction. But what emerges on the other side will be the church I always intended. Not a building, not an institution, not a social club, but a living, breathing, powerful body of believers who know me intimately and move in my authority. The images appeared again, but different this time. I saw small groups of believers meeting in homes, in parks, in secret places. Their faces were radiant. They were praying with an authority I'd never seen. They were seeing miracles, real miracles, healings, deliverances, salvations. The lost were being drawn to them like moths to flame because they carried something the world was desperate for, genuine encounter with the living God. I saw young people, teenagers and 20-somethings, on fire with passion for Jesus. Not the shallow, emotional passion that fades when things get hard, but deep, rooted, unshakable conviction. They were bold, fearless, speaking truth in places where truth had been silent for years. I saw families that had been divided coming back together, reconciled not by compromise, but by genuine repentance and forgiveness. I saw prodigals coming home. I saw the hardest hearts being softened. I saw the greatest harvest of souls in modern history. This is the other side, Jesus said. This is what's waiting for those who stand firm, those who refuse to compromise, those who build their lives on me instead of on comfort or convenience. Jonathan, I'm not just warning about judgment. I'm inviting people into the greatest move of my spirit the world has ever seen. But they have to choose. They have to decide now before the pressure comes who they're going to serve. He walked back to the center rock and sat down on it, motioning for me to join him. I sat beside him, and for a moment we just sat there in silence, watching the snow fall. It was coming down heavily now, already several inches deep on the ground. The forest was completely silent, except for the soft whisper of snowflakes landing on snow. I have a question, I finally said. Ask. Why me? I'm nobody special. I'm just an actor. I'm not a pastor or a theologian or a prophet. I'm 51 years old, single, no kids, no seminary degree. Why would you choose me to carry this message? He smiled, and it was the warmest thing I'd ever seen. That's exactly why I chose you, Jonathan, because you know you're nobody special, because you're not trying to build a ministry empire or make a name for yourself, because you've tasted enough of fame to know it's empty, because you've played me on screen long enough to know the difference between performance and reality, and because you're willing to be misunderstood and criticized for speaking truth. That's rare, rarer than you think. He stood up, and I knew our time was ending. The snow was falling so hard now, I could barely see the edge of the clearing. The ancient trees were becoming ghostly shapes in the white curtain of snow. Tomorrow night, he said, one more time. Come back tomorrow night, and I'll show you the final piece. I'll show you what happens to those who refuse to prepare, and I'll show you exactly what I'm calling my remnant to do. Can you handle that? I don't know, I said honestly. Tonight was almost more than I could bear. I know, he said, but you're stronger than you think, and you're not carrying this alone. I'm with you, always, even when you can't feel me, even when you can't see me. I'm there. He began to fade, his form becoming translucent, like he was made of snow and light. One more thing, he said, his voice growing distant. Tell them about the roots. Tell them it's not too late to go deep. Tell them I'm calling them to intimacy, not activity, to knowing me, not just knowing about me. Tell them the storm is coming, but I'm the shelter, and those who run to me will not be shaken. And then he was gone. I sat there on that rock for another hour, maybe longer, as the snow continued to fall. I was covered in it, my jacket, my beanie, my shoulders, but I didn't care. I was processing, trying to absorb everything I'd seen and heard, trying to figure out how to put it into words that people would receive. Because that's the thing, I can tell you what he showed me. I can describe the visions, quote his words, paint the picture as clearly as I know how. But I can't make you believe it. I can't make you take it seriously. I can't make you act on it. That's between you and him. But I'm begging you, and I don't use that word lightly, I'm begging you to hear what I'm saying, not because I'm special or important or have some inside track to God, but because what he showed me is real. It's coming, and you need to be ready. So here's what I need you to do right now, today, before you watch another video or scroll to the next thing. First, Get alone with Jesus. Not in a church service, not with worship music playing in the background, not with your phone nearby. Get completely alone and ask him one question. Lord, how deep are my roots? Am I building on rock or on sand? Am I truly rooted in you, or am I just going through religious motions? And then listen, really listen. He'll answer you. He might not appear to you the way he appeared to me, that's not the point, but he'll speak to your heart. He'll show you the truth about where you really are spiritually. And it might be uncomfortable. It might reveal things you don't want to see, but it's necessary. Second, I need you to share this message. I know that sounds self-serving, like I'm just trying to get views or subscribers, but I promise you, that's not what this is about. This is about getting a warning to as many people as possible before it's too late. So share this video, send it to your family, post it on your social media, email it to your church. I don't care if people think you're weird or extreme. This is too important to worry about what people think. Third, leave your prayer requests in the comments. I'm serious about this. I'm going to pray over every single one because we need to be in unity. We need to be standing together, and your willingness to be vulnerable, to share your needs, creates that unity. Tomorrow night, or technically tonight since it's now January 21st, I'm going back to that clearing one final time. Jesus said he'll show me what happens to those who refuse to prepare. He said he'll show me exactly what he's calling the remnant to do, and I'll share every bit of it with you, but I need you to prepare your heart for it. Because if tonight's message was hard, tomorrow's is going to be harder. It's going to challenge everything. It's going to require you to make a choice, and that choice is going to cost you something. The question is, are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to be part of the remnant that stands firm when everything else is shaking? Are you willing to go deep, to build roots, to know him intimately instead of just knowing about him? I hope so, because the world needs you, the kingdom needs you, and Jesus is calling you to something greater than you've ever imagined. I'll see you tomorrow night with the final part of what he showed me. Until then, don't waste time. Start digging deep, start building on rock, start preparing for what's coming, because ready or not, it's on its way. January 21st, 2026, 2:47 a.m. I'm writing this just hours after the most intense spiritual encounter of my life. My hands are still shaking, my heart is still racing, and I'm not sure I have the words to adequately describe what Jesus showed me tonight, but I have to try. Because what he revealed in that forest clearing, in the midst of a storm that felt like the very heavens were tearing open, is something every single person watching this needs to hear. I arrived at the clearing at 2:30 a.m., 15 minutes early. The snow from the previous night had stopped around dawn, leaving everything covered in about 8 inches of pristine white. The temperature had dropped to 24 degrees. The sky was clear again, clearer than I'd ever seen it, and the stars were so bright they cast actual shadows on the snow. But there was something else in the air tonight, a tension, an electricity, like the atmosphere itself was holding its breath, waiting for something momentous to happen. I made my way to the center rock, brushing off the snow that had accumulated on its surface. The forest was absolutely silent, no wind, no animal sounds, nothing, just the crunch of my boots on snow and the sound of my own breathing, visible in clouds of vapor. I didn't have to wait long. At exactly 2:47 a.m., the air began to change. But this time it wasn't gentle, it wasn't gradual. One moment I was alone in a silent forest, and the next moment the presence of God was so thick, so overwhelming, so powerful that I fell to my knees, not because I chose to, because my legs literally gave out under the weight of his glory. Jesus appeared, but not like the previous 2 nights. This time he was radiant. His robes were brilliant white, whiter than the snow around us. His face was shining like the sun, though somehow I could still look at him. And his eyes, those eyes that had been filled with love and grief the previous nights, were now burning with holy fire. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice resonated through the entire forest. The trees seemed to tremble, the ground seemed to vibrate. "Are you ready to see the end of this revelation? Are you ready to see what I'm calling my people to, and what will happen to those who refuse?" "Yes, Lord," I managed to whisper, though every cell in my body was screaming that I was not, in fact, ready. "Then stand," he commanded. "Stand and watch." I struggled to my feet, my legs weak, my whole body trembling. Jesus raised his hands toward the sky, and suddenly the stars began to move. I don't mean they twinkled or shifted slightly. I mean they began to swirl, to form patterns, to create images in the heavens themselves. It was like the entire universe had become a canvas for what he wanted to show me. "I'm going to show you 2 paths," he said, Two futures, two destinies, one for those who heed my warning and prepare their hearts, one for those who ignore it and continue in their comfortable, lukewarm faith. Watch carefully, because every person watching this will have to choose which path they'll walk. The stars formed an image of a narrow path winding up a mountain. It was steep, rocky, difficult. I could see figures walking on it, people of all ages, all backgrounds. They were struggling, some were crawling, some were helping others who had fallen. But they were moving forward, upward, and there was something in their faces. Even from this cosmic distance, I could see it. A determination, a joy, a peace that transcended their circumstances. This is the path of the remnant, Jesus said, the ones who choose to go deep, the ones who build their lives on me instead of on comfort. Look closely at what this path requires. The image zoomed in, and suddenly I could see details. I saw a woman giving up a lucrative career because it required her to compromise her convictions. I saw a man walking away from a church he'd attended for 20 years because the leadership had abandoned biblical truth. I saw a young couple choosing to live in a smaller house, drive older cars, sacrifice the American dream so they could be more generous, more available, more focused on kingdom purposes. I saw people being misunderstood by their families, criticized by their friends, mocked on social media, called extreme, radical, judgmental, narrow-minded. And I saw the pain in their faces. This wasn't easy for them. They weren't superhuman. They felt the rejection. They grieved the relationships that were damaged. They struggled with doubt and fear and loneliness. But I also saw something else. I saw Jesus walking with them, not metaphorically, literally. He was there on that narrow path, sometimes visible to them, sometimes not, but always present, always close. And in the moments when they were most discouraged, most ready to give up, I saw him reach out and touch them, and strength would flood back into their bodies. Hope would reignite in their hearts. They would stand up and keep walking. This is what I'm offering, Jesus said. Not an easy life, not a comfortable life, not a life where everything makes sense and everyone approves, but a life where I am near, where my presence is tangible, where my power flows through surrendered vessels, where joy exists even in the midst of suffering because they know me, truly know me. The image shifted. Now I saw these same people further along the path. They had reached a plateau, a wide place where they could rest, and they were glowing. I don't mean that metaphorically either. They were actually emanating light, like they'd absorbed the presence of Jesus so fully that it was radiating from them. And I saw people in darkness, lost people, broken people, desperate people being drawn to that light like moths to flame. I watched as these remnant believers prayed for the sick and saw them healed. I watched as they spoke to the demonized and saw them delivered. I watched as they shared the gospel with the hardest hearts and saw those hearts melt. It wasn't because they were specially gifted or talented. It was because they carried his presence. They'd paid the price to know him intimately, and now he was flowing through them in power. This is the harvest I promised, Jesus said. This is what's waiting on the other side of the shaking. A church that looks like me, acts like me, loves like me. A church that doesn't need buildings or budgets or programs because it's built on relationship with me. This is what I'm calling my remnant to. This is the prize for those who endure. I was weeping now, overwhelmed by the beauty of what I was seeing. Lord, I want that. I want to be part of that. I know, he said gently. That's why I chose you to carry this message. But Jonathan, you need to see the other path. You need to see what happens to those who refuse, because the warning is just as important as the promise. The stars shifted again, and this time the image made my stomach turn. I saw a wide path, smooth and easy, crowded with people. They were comfortable, smiling, entertained. They were in beautiful church buildings with state-of-the-art everything. They were listening to messages that made them feel good, that affirmed their choices, that required nothing difficult from them. They were singing worship songs with their hands raised, but their hearts were far away, focused on what they were going to do after service, on their plans, their dreams, their agendas. This is the path most of my church is on right now, Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with sorrow. They think they're fine. They think because they attend services and give some money and avoid the big sins that they're right with me. But they don't know me. They know about me. They've built their faith on sand, on feelings, on community, on tradition, on everything except intimate relationship with me. And when the storm comes, the image changed. Dark clouds rolled in over the wide path. Wind began to blow. Rain began to fall, and I watched in horror as the people on that path began to panic. They ran to their church buildings for shelter, but the buildings were crumbling. They cried out to their pastors for answers, but the pastors were just as confused and afraid as they were. They reached for their faith, but there was nothing there to grab onto. It had all been surface level, shallow, built on sand. I saw people falling away, not because they were being persecuted, not because someone was forcing them to deny Christ, but because when pressure came, when things got difficult, when their comfortable Christianity was challenged, they discovered they'd never really known him at all. They'd known a version of him they'd created in their own image, a Jesus who existed to bless them and make their lives easier. But the real Jesus, the one who calls us to die to ourselves, to take up our cross, to follow him no matter the cost, they'd never met him. I saw anger, bitterness, people shaking their fists at heaven, demanding to know why God had abandoned them, why he hadn't protected them, why he'd let them down. But they couldn't hear his response. I never abandoned you. You abandoned me. I called you to go deeper, and you chose to stay shallow. I warned you, and you ignored the warnings. I invited you to intimacy, and you settled for activity. Lord, stop, I said, turning away from the images. I can't watch anymore. It's too much. You have to watch, he said, and there was steel in his voice now. Because this is what's coming for everyone who refuses to prepare, and they need to know. They need to see the consequences of their choices while there's still time to change course. He turned me back toward the cosmic display, and the image shifted again. Now I saw the aftermath. The storm had passed. The wide path was littered with casualties, not physical bodies, but spiritual ones. People who had walked away from faith entirely. People who were wounded, broken, disillusioned. People who were angry at God, at the church, at everyone who had failed them. And the tragedy was that it didn't have to be this way. They'd had warning, they'd had opportunity, but they'd chosen comfort over depth, entertainment over transformation, the approval of people over the approval of God. But then I saw something that gave me hope. I saw some of those fallen people being reached by the remnant, the ones who had walked the narrow path, who had built on rock, who carried the presence of Jesus. They were going back for the wounded. They were speaking truth in love. They were demonstrating the reality of a faith that could withstand the storm. And I saw some of those fallen ones responding, getting back up, choosing the narrow path this time, choosing depth over shallowness, choosing Jesus over comfort. It's not too late, Jesus said. Even after the falling away begins, it's not too late for those who are willing to repent and turn to me with their whole hearts. But Jonathan, it's so much harder to build a foundation in the middle of a storm than it is to build it before the storm comes. That's why I'm warning them now. That's why I'm calling them to prepare now. Not to scare them, but to save them from unnecessary pain. The images faded. The stars returned to their normal positions. Jesus lowered his hands and turned to face me fully. The radiance around him dimmed slightly, enough that I could look at him without being overwhelmed. Do you understand now? He asked. Do you see why this message is so urgent? Yes, I said. But Lord, what do I tell them to do? How do they prepare? What does it actually look like to build on rock instead of sand? He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. Finally, you're asking the right question. Come, sit with me. He walked to the center rock and sat down. I joined him, and for a moment, we just sat there in silence. The forest was still quiet, but it felt different now, peaceful, sacred, like we were in the throne room of heaven itself. Building on rock is simpler than people think, he said, but it's not easy. Simple and easy are not the same thing. It requires three things: time, truth, and surrender. He held up one finger. First, time. You cannot know someone you don't spend time with. It's impossible. You can know about them. You can study their biography. You can memorize facts about them, but you cannot know them, their heart, their voice, their character, without spending time with them. My church has become so busy doing things for me that they've forgotten to be with me. They've substituted activity for intimacy, and when the storm comes, activity won't save them, only intimacy will. He held up a second finger. Second, truth. You must be willing to let my word shape you instead of trying to shape my word to fit your preferences. There's a famine of truth in my church right now, not because my word has changed, but because people have decided they get to pick and choose which parts they'll obey. They've made themselves the authority instead of submitting to my authority. And a faith built on selective obedience is a faith built on sand, When pressure comes, it will crumble. He held up a third finger. Third, surrender. You must be willing to let go of everything that competes with me for first place in your heart, your comfort, your reputation, your plans, your dreams. Even good things can become idols if you love them more than you love me, and I'm calling my remnant to radical surrender, not because I'm a tyrant who wants to control you, but because I'm a father who knows that anything you hold on to more tightly than you hold on to me will eventually destroy you. He paused, letting those words sink in. Then he continued, here's what this looks like practically. Every single day, you need to spend time alone with me, not reading about me, not listening to someone else talk about me, but actually with me, in silence, in prayer, in worship, in my word, at least 30 minutes, but ideally an hour. And during that time, you need to do 3 things. He counted them off on his fingers. 1. Listen. Stop talking long enough to hear my voice. I'm always speaking, but most people are too busy or too distracted to hear me. 2. Obey. When I show you something that needs to change in your life, change it immediately. Don't negotiate, don't rationalize, don't wait for a more convenient time. Immediate obedience builds trust and deepens intimacy. 3. Surrender. Every single day, lay down your agenda and ask me for mine. Give me permission to interrupt your plans, to redirect your steps, to use you however I want. That's it? I asked. That's how they prepare? That's it, he said. It's simple. But Jonathan, most people won't do it. They'll hear this message and think, that sounds good. I should do that. But they won't actually do it. They'll go back to their busy lives and their comfortable routines and their shallow faith. And when the storm comes, they'll wonder why they weren't ready. He stood up and I knew our time was ending. But there was one more thing I needed to know. Lord, when? When is this storm coming? When does the shaking begin? He looked at me with those burning eyes, and I saw both love and sorrow in them. It's already begun, Jonathan. The cracks are already forming. The foundations are already being tested. But the full force of it, the event that will separate the wheat from the chaff, that's coming within 18 months. Some will see the signs and recognize what's happening. Most won't. They'll be caught completely off guard because they weren't watching. They weren't listening. They weren't prepared. Suddenly, the wind picked up. Not a gentle breeze like the previous nights, but a powerful gust that shook the trees and sent snow swirling through the clearing. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees in an instant. And the sky, the clear, star-filled sky, began to fill with dark clouds, rolling in from every direction, converging over the clearing. This is a picture, Jesus said, his voice rising above the wind. This is what's coming. Sudden, powerful, unavoidable. But those who are rooted in me will not be shaken. Those who have built on rock will stand firm. Those who know my voice will hear me in the storm and follow me through it. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the entire forest in stark white light. Thunder followed immediately, so loud it felt like the earth itself was splitting open. The wind was howling now, bending the ancient trees, tearing at my clothes. Snow was flying horizontally, stinging my face. But Jesus stood in the center of it all, completely calm, completely unmoved. The storm raged around him, but it couldn't touch him, and I realized that's what he was showing me. That's the promise for those who stay close to him. The storm will come, the shaking will happen, but in him there is peace. In him there is safety. In him there is unshakable stability. Go, he shouted over the wind. Go and tell them what you've seen. Tell them to prepare. Tell them to build deep. Tell them I'm coming soon and I'm looking for a bride who's made herself ready. Tell them the time for playing church is over. Tell them I'm calling them to the real thing, to genuine faith, to authentic relationship, to radical surrender. Tell them. Another flash of lightning, brighter than the first. And in that flash, I saw him in his full glory. Not just Jesus the teacher, the friend, the gentle shepherd, but Jesus the king, the judge, the warrior, the consuming fire. And I fell on my face in the snow, overwhelmed, undone, completely wrecked by the holiness and power and majesty of who he is. When I looked up, he was gone. The storm was already passing. The wind was dying down. The clouds were breaking apart, revealing the stars again. And I was alone in the clearing, covered in snow, shaking from cold and awe and the weight of what I just experienced. I don't know how long I lay there, maybe 10 minutes, maybe an hour. Time had lost all meaning. but eventually I got to my feet and made my way back to my car. The sun was just beginning to rise as I drove home, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. And now I'm here, just hours later, trying to put into words what cannot fully be captured by words, trying to convey the urgency, the seriousness, the life or death importance of what Jesus showed me. So let me be crystal clear. This is not a game. This is not entertainment. This is not content for you to consume and then scroll past. This is a warning from the living God about what's coming to his church and to this nation. And you have a choice to make. Will you be part of the remnant that stands firm, or will you be part of the crowd that falls away? Will you build on rock, or will you keep building on sand? Will you go deep with Jesus now, while there's still time? Or will you wait until the storm hits and discover it's too late to build a foundation? The choice is yours. But you need to make it now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when it's more convenient. Now. Because the storm is coming. Jesus said 18 months. That means by July of 2027, the shaking will be in full force. And if you're not prepared, if you haven't built deep roots, if you don't know his voice and his presence intimately, you will not stand. I know some of you are thinking I'm being extreme, dramatic, fear-mongering, and you know what? I don't care. I'd rather be accused of being too urgent than stand before Jesus one day and have him ask me why I didn't warn people when he told me to. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Here's the practical application of everything Jesus showed me over these 3 nights. Starting today, commit to 30 minutes alone with Jesus every single day, not reading Christian books, not listening to podcasts, not scrolling through inspirational quotes, but actually with him, in silence, in prayer, in his word. And during that time, practice the 3 things he told me. Listen, obey, surrender. Do this for the next 30 days. Mark your calendar. Today is January 21st, 2026. 30 days from now is February 20th, 2026. That's your deadline, 30 days of intentional, focused, daily time with Jesus. And I promise you, if you do this consistently, you will not be the same person at the end of those 30 days. You will know his voice better. You will sense his presence more clearly. You will have a foundation that can withstand whatever storm is coming. But you have to actually do it. You can't just think about it or plan to do it or wish you had time for it. You have to make it the non-negotiable priority of your day, before work, before social media, before anything else. Jesus first, every single day. And here's the second thing I need you to do. Share this message. I know I've said this before, but I'm saying it again because it's that important. There are people in your life who need to hear this warning. Family members, friends, co-workers, people in your church, and you might be the only person who can reach them. So share this video, send them the link, post it on your social media, email it, text it. I don't care how you do it, just get it to them. Third thing, leave a comment below. Tell me you're committing to the 30-day challenge. Tell me what God is speaking to your heart. Tell me your prayer requests, because we need to be in this together. We need to be unified. We need to be standing in agreement that we will not be part of the falling away. We will be part of the remnant. We will build on rock. We will go deep. We will be ready. Tomorrow night, I'm going to share the final part of this message, the aftermath, the practical steps, the specific things Jesus told me his remnant needs to focus on in the coming months. But tonight, I need you to sit with what I've already shared. I need you to let it sink in. I need you to ask Jesus if what I'm saying is true. Don't just take my word for it. Go to him yourself and ask him, because this is too important to get wrong. Your eternity and the eternities of people you love might depend on the choice you make right now. So choose wisely, choose quickly, and choose Jesus. Not the comfortable, domesticated version of Jesus that most of the church has created, but the real Jesus, the one who calls us to die to ourselves, the one who promises us trouble in this world but gives us peace in him, the one who's coming back soon for a bride who's made herself ready. Be that bride, be part of that remnant, build on rock. The storm is coming, but in him you will not be shaken. I'll see you tomorrow night for the final part. It's been 3 days since that final encounter in the forest clearing. 3 days since I watched the storm rage around Jesus while he stood unmoved, calling me to warn his church about what's coming. 3 days since I felt the weight of his glory press me into the snow and heard his voice thunder over the wind. Tell them to prepare. I've barely slept. Every time I close my eyes, I see those visions. The 2 paths, the falling away, the remnant rising, the harvest, the judgment. It's all burned into my mind like a brand, and I know it will never leave me. I know I'll carry the weight of what I saw for the rest of my life, but I also carry something else: hope. Because as devastating as parts of that revelation were, the promise at the end was glorious. Jesus is preparing a people, he's raising up a remnant, and he's inviting every single person watching this to be part of it. The question is, will you accept the invitation? Let me tell you what happened after that third night. Let me tell you about the aftermath, and then I'll give you the specific, practical steps Jesus told me to share with you. I went back to the clearing yesterday afternoon, January 22nd, around 3 p.m. I needed to see it in daylight. I needed to process everything that had happened in that sacred space. I needed to know if it had all been real, or if somehow I'd experienced some kind of elaborate hallucination brought on by stress and sleep deprivation. The drive out there felt different in daylight. The forest that had seemed so mysterious and otherworldly at night looked almost ordinary in the afternoon sun. Just trees, just snow, just a quiet preserve that most people didn't even know existed. But when I reached the clearing, I knew immediately that what I'd experienced had been real. The center rock, the one where Jesus had sat with me, where he'd stood when he showed me the visions and the stars, it was different. The snow around it had melted in a perfect circle, about 15 feet in diameter, even though the temperature hadn't risen above freezing. The rock itself was warm to the touch, not hot, but noticeably warm, like it had been absorbing sunlight for hours, even though it was shaded by the massive trees surrounding it. And there was something else. The air in that clearing felt different, thicker, charged, like the presence of God had been so strong there that it had left an imprint on the physical space. I've been in a lot of churches, a lot of sacred spaces, but I've never felt anything like what I felt in that clearing. It was like standing on the edge of heaven itself. I sat on that warm rock for over 2 hours. I prayed, I worshiped, I wept, I journaled, and I listened. Because even though Jesus didn't appear to me again in visible form, I could sense him there. I could hear his voice in my spirit giving me clarity about what to share with you, about how to communicate the urgency without creating fear, about how to call people higher without condemning them for where they are. And this is what he told me to tell you. First, you need to understand that this message isn't about condemnation, it's about invitation. Jesus isn't angry at his church, he's heartbroken for his church. He sees what's coming and he sees how unprepared most of his people are, and it grieves him. Not because he wants to punish them, but because he wants to protect them. He wants to spare them from the pain and confusion and disillusionment that comes from building on sand. Think about it like this. If you saw a child playing in the street and you saw a car coming, you wouldn't politely suggest that maybe they should consider moving when it's convenient. You would shout. You would run toward them. You would grab them and pull them to safety, even if it scared them, even if they didn't understand, even if they got angry at you for interrupting their play. Because their life is more important than their comfort. That's what Jesus is doing right now. He's shouting, he's running toward his church, he's trying to pull us to safety before the impact. And yes, it's uncomfortable, yes, it's disruptive, yes, it challenges our comfortable Christianity. But it's necessary because he loves us too much to let us stay in danger when he's clearly warned us about what's coming. So if you're feeling convicted right now, if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you're feeling like this message is exposing areas of shallowness in your faith, good. That's the Holy Spirit doing his work. Don't resist it. Don't rationalize it away. Don't get defensive. Just receive it. Let it do its work in you. Let it drive you deeper into Jesus. Now let me give you the specific, practical steps Jesus told me to share. This is the roadmap for the next 18 months. This is how you prepare. This is how you build on rock instead of sand. This is how you become part of the remnant that stands firm when everything else is shaking. Step 1. Establish a daily encounter. I mentioned this in the last video, but I need to emphasize it again because it's the foundation for everything else. You must, and I don't use that word lightly, you must establish a daily time of encounter with Jesus. Not Bible study, though that's important, not prayer lists, though those have their place, but actual encounter, actual intimacy, actual two-way conversation where you speak to him and then you're quiet long enough to hear him speak back. Here's what this looks like practically. Set your alarm 30 minutes earlier than you normally wake up. I know that's hard. I know you're tired. I know you feel like you don't have time. But you're going to have to make time because this is literally the difference between standing and falling when the storm comes. When you wake up, before you check your phone, before you turn on the TV, before you do anything else, go to a quiet place. It could be a room in your house. It could be your car. It could be outside if weather permits. Somewhere you can be alone and undistracted. Bring 3 things: your Bible, a journal, and nothing else. No phone, no laptop, no distractions. Start with 5 minutes of silence. Just sit there. Breathe. Quiet your mind. Acknowledge that you're in the presence of the living God. This is harder than it sounds. Your mind will race. You'll think of 1,000 things you need to do. That's normal. Just keep bringing your focus back to Jesus. Keep acknowledging his presence. Then spend 10 minutes in worship, not listening to worship music, though that's fine at other times, but actually worshiping, speaking or singing words of praise and adoration to Jesus, thanking him for who he is, declaring his goodness, magnifying his name. This isn't about feeling emotional. It's about choosing to focus on him instead of on yourself. Then spend 10 minutes in the Word, not reading a devotional, not reading what someone else says about the Bible, but actually reading the Bible itself. Start with the Gospels. Read about Jesus. Watch how he interacts with people. Listen to what he says. Ask the Holy Spirit to make it come alive to you. Finally, spend 5 minutes listening and journaling. Ask Jesus one simple question: what do you want to say to me today? And then be quiet. Listen. And write down whatever comes to mind. Don't edit it. Don't judge it. Don't worry about whether it's really him or just your own thoughts. Just write it down. Over time, you'll learn to recognize his voice. You'll learn to distinguish between his voice and your own thoughts and the enemy's lies. But you have to practice. You have to create space for him to speak. Do this every single day for the next 30 days. No exceptions. Not when you have time. Not if you remember. Every single day. Mark it on your calendar. Set reminders. Do whatever you need to do to make this happen. And here's the key: this isn't a religious obligation. This isn't another item on your to-do list. This is a relationship. This is you choosing to prioritize the most important relationship in your life. This is you saying to Jesus, you're more important than sleep. You're more important than my schedule. You're more important than my comfort. I need you, and I'm going to make time for you no matter what. Step 2. Identify and remove idols. This is going to be uncomfortable, but it's necessary. An idol is anything you love, trust, or prioritize more than Jesus, and most Christians have multiple idols they're not even aware of. During your daily encounter time, ask Jesus this question: what am I holding on to more tightly than I'm holding on to you? And then listen. He'll show you. It might be your career, your reputation, your comfort, your relationships, your plans for the future, your political views, your theological positions. Even good things can become idols if they take the place that only Jesus should occupy. When he shows you an idol, you have two choices: surrender it or keep it. But understand this: if you keep it, if you refuse to surrender it, you're building on sand. And when the storm comes, that idol will not save you. It will crumble and it will take you down with it. Surrendering an idol doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of the thing itself. It means changing your relationship to it. It means loosening your grip. It means saying, Jesus, I give this to you. I hold it with an open hand. If you want me to keep it, I'll keep it. If you want me to release it, I'll release it. But either way, you're more important. This is scary. I'm not going to lie to you. When Jesus showed me my own idols over these past few months, I fought him on some of them. I rationalized. I negotiated. I tried to convince him and myself that I needed these things, that they weren't really idols, that I could keep them and still put him first. But he was patient with me. He kept pressing. He kept showing me the truth, and eventually I surrendered. And you know what I discovered? The things I was so afraid to lose, the things I thought I needed to be happy and fulfilled, they were actually weighing me down. They were keeping me from the deeper intimacy with Jesus that I desperately wanted but couldn't seem to find. When I finally let them go, when I finally surrendered them completely, I felt lighter, freer, more alive. And Jesus filled the space they'd occupied with more of himself, and I realized that's what he'd been trying to give me all along. So don't fight him on this. When he shows you an idol, surrender it immediately. Don't wait, don't negotiate. Just open your hand and let it go. I promise you, what he gives you in return is infinitely better than what you're releasing. Step 3. Find your tribe. You cannot walk this narrow path alone. You need community, but not just any community, not the shallow, surface level, how was your week kind of community that most churches offer. You need deep, authentic, iron-sharpening iron community with other believers who are serious about going deep with Jesus. This might mean you need to leave your current church. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because Jesus made it clear to me that it's necessary for some people. If you're in a church that is compromised on biblical truth, that prioritizes entertainment over transformation, that makes you comfortable instead of challenging you to grow, you need to leave. Not in anger, not in judgment, but in obedience to what Jesus is calling you to. Find a church or a small group, or even just two or three other believers who are hungry for more, people who want to go deep, people who are willing to be vulnerable and authentic, people who will speak truth to you in love, even when it's hard to hear, people who will pray with you and fast with you and stand with you when the storm comes. And here's what's important. This community needs to meet regularly, not just on Sunday mornings, not just when it's convenient. You need to be in each other's lives. You need to know each other's struggles. You need to be able to call each other at 2 a.m. when you're in crisis. You need to be committed to each other's spiritual growth, not just to being friendly acquaintances who see each other once a week. Jesus showed me that the remnant is going to be marked by this kind of community, small groups of believers who are deeply connected, deeply committed, deeply rooted in Him and in each other. And when the shaking comes, these communities are going to be the lifelines that keep people from falling away. So start building that now. Don't wait until the crisis hits. Find your tribe. Invest in those relationships. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. Be committed, because you're going to need them, and they're going to need you. Step 4. Simplify your life. This is going to sound radical, but Jesus was very clear about this. Most of His people are too busy, too distracted, too consumed with things that don't matter, and it's choking out their spiritual life. You need to simplify. You need to cut out the excess. You need to eliminate the distractions that are keeping you from focusing on what's truly important. This might mean cutting back your work hours. It might mean saying no to commitments you've said yes to. It might mean getting rid of your TV or deleting social media apps from your phone or selling the house that requires so much of your time and money to maintain. It might mean downsizing your lifestyle so you have more margin for what matters. I know this is hard. I know we live in a culture that equates busyness with importance and success with accumulation. But Jesus is calling His remnant to a different way, a simpler way, a way that prioritizes relationship over achievement, being over doing, eternal things over temporary things. Ask yourself this question. If Jesus came back tomorrow, what would you wish you'd spent more time on? What would you wish you'd spent less time on? And then start making changes now to align your life with those priorities. For me, this has meant saying no to opportunities that would have advanced my career, but would have taken me away from the daily encounter time Jesus called me to. It's meant spending less time on social media and more time in prayer. It's meant choosing relationships over recognition, depth over breadth, quality over quantity. And I'm not going to lie, it's been hard. I've had to disappoint people. I've had to turn down opportunities that seemed amazing. I've had to watch other people advance while I've chosen to go deeper instead of wider, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because what I've gained in intimacy with Jesus is worth more than anything I've given up. Step 5. Prepare to be misunderstood. This is the hardest part, and Jesus was very clear about it. If you choose the narrow path, if you choose to go deep, if you choose to be part of the remnant, you will be misunderstood. You will be criticized. You will be called extreme, radical, judgmental, narrow-minded, even by other Christians, maybe especially by other Christians. People will accuse you of being in a cult. They'll say you're fear-mongering. They'll say you're being manipulated. They'll say you're taking things too seriously, that you need to lighten up, that God wants you to be happy and comfortable, and it will hurt, because some of these people will be people you love, people you respect, people whose approval you valued, and when they turn on you, when they misunderstand you, when they reject you for choosing Jesus over comfort, it will break your heart. But Jesus said this would happen. He said, if they hated me, they will hate you. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you. He said following Him would cost us everything. He never promised it would be easy or popular or comfortable. So you need to prepare your heart for this now. You need to decide now, before the pressure comes, that you're going to follow Jesus no matter what it costs you, no matter who misunderstands you, no matter who walks away, no matter what you lose. Because here's the truth. You're going to lose some people. Some relationships are not going to survive your decision to go deeper with Jesus. And that's okay. It's painful, but it's okay, because what you gain in Him is worth more than what you lose in them. And here's the other truth. The people who are supposed to be in your life, the people who are part of your tribe, the people who are on the same journey, they'll find you, or you'll find them. God will connect you with the right people at the right time. You won't be alone. You'll have community. It just might not be the community you expected. So those are the 5 steps. Let me summarize them. Establish a daily encounter with Jesus, 30 minutes minimum. Identify and remove idols. Surrender everything that competes with Him. Find your tribe, deep, authentic community with other serious believers. Simplify your life. eliminate distractions, and create margin. Prepare to be misunderstood, count the cost, and choose Jesus anyway. These 5 things will build a foundation that can withstand any storm. These 5 things will root you so deeply in Jesus that when the shaking comes, you will not be moved. These 5 things will prepare you to be part of the remnant that stands firm and sees the greatest harvest in history. But you have to actually do them. You can't just hear this message and think, that's nice, that's good advice, I should do that someday. You have to start today, right now, this moment. Because time is running out. Jesus said 18 months. That means by July 2027, the shaking will be in full force. Today is January 21st, 2026. That gives you 18 months to prepare, 18 months to go deep, 18 months to build on rock instead of sand. But here's what I want you to understand. You don't have to wait 18 months to see results. If you start implementing these 5 steps today, you will see transformation in your life within weeks, within days even. Because Jesus is eager to meet with you. He's been waiting for you to create space for him. He's been longing for the kind of intimacy with you that these practices will create. So don't wait. Don't put this off. Don't tell yourself you'll start tomorrow or next week or when things calm down. Start today. Start right now. Here's what I want you to do immediately after watching this video. First, leave a comment below. Tell me you're committing to the 30-day challenge. Tell me which of the 5 steps is going to be hardest for you. Tell me what God is speaking to your heart right now. Be specific, be honest, be vulnerable. Because when you publicly declare your commitment, you're more likely to follow through. And when you share your struggles, you'll find others who are struggling with the same things, and you can encourage each other. Second, set your alarm for tomorrow morning, 30 minutes earlier than you normally wake up. And when that alarm goes off, don't hit snooze. Get up, go to your quiet place, and have your first daily encounter with Jesus. Don't wait until you feel ready or until you've figured out exactly how to do it perfectly. Just start. He'll meet you there. I promise. Third, share this video. I know I keep saying this, but it's crucial. There are people in your life who need to hear this message. People who are building on sand and don't even know it. People who are going to be devastated when the storm comes because no one warned them. You might be the only person who can reach them. So share this video, send them the link, post it on your social media, email it, text it, get it to them. Their eternity might depend on it. Fourth, mark your calendar. Today is January 21st, 2026. 30 days from now is February 20th, 2026. That's your first checkpoint. Commit to doing the daily encounter for 30 days straight, and then on February 20th, come back and leave another comment telling me how it's going. Tell me what's changed. Tell me what Jesus has shown you. Tell me how you're different. And then keep going. Because this isn't a 30-day program. This is a lifestyle. This is the rest of your life. This is you choosing to build on rock instead of sand, to go deep instead of staying shallow, to be part of the remnant instead of part of the crowd. Fifth, and this is important, don't do this alone. Find at least one other person, a friend, a family member, someone from your church, who will commit to this journey with you. Someone you can check in with regularly. Someone who will hold you accountable. Someone who will pray with you and encourage you and challenge you when you start to drift. Text them right now, call them, message them. Say, I just watched something that wrecked me, and I'm committing to go deeper with Jesus. Will you do this with me? And then share this video with them so they understand what you're committing to. I want to close with something Jesus said to me on that final night in the clearing, after he showed me the storm, after he showed me the 2 paths, after he gave me all these instructions to share with you. He looked at me with those burning eyes, and he said this, Jonathan, tell them I'm not looking for perfect people. I'm looking for willing people. Tell them I'm not looking for people who have it all figured out. I'm looking for people who are hungry. Tell them I'm not looking for people who never fail. I'm looking for people who get back up when they fall. Tell them I'm not looking for superstars. I'm looking for servants. Tell them I'm not looking for people who can do great things for me. I'm looking for people who will let me do great things through them. And then he said, tell them I love them. Tell them I see them. Tell them I know their struggles and their fears and their doubts. Tell them I'm not disappointed in them. Tell them I'm inviting them into something greater than they've ever imagined. Tell them the best is yet to come for those who choose me. Tell them. So that's what I'm telling you. Jesus loves you. He sees you. He knows exactly where you are and what you're dealing with, and he's not disappointed in you. He's not angry at you. He's not condemning you, but he is calling you higher. He is inviting you deeper. He is asking you to choose him over everything else. And he's promising that if you do, if you take him up on this invitation, if you commit to building on rock instead of sand, you will not regret it. You'll see him move in your life in ways you never thought possible. You'll experience his presence in ways that will ruin you for anything less. You'll be part of the greatest move of God in history. You'll see miracles, you'll see salvations, you'll see the lost found and the broken healed and the dead raised, spiritually and maybe even physically. But you have to choose, you have to decide, and you have to decide now, because the storm is coming. Jesus said it, I saw it, and it's real, but so is the promise, so is the hope, so is the harvest, and you get to choose which side of this you're on. So what's it going to be? Will you be part of the remnant? Will you build on rock? Will you go deep? Or will you keep doing what you've always done, hoping somehow it will be enough when the pressure comes? The choice is yours, but choose quickly, choose wisely, and choose Jesus. Because He's chosen you, He's marked you, He's called you, and He's waiting for your response. I went back to that clearing one more time this morning, just before I recorded this. The sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. The snow was sparkling like diamonds. The ancient trees stood like sentinels, their roots going deep, their branches reaching high. And I stood on that center rock, the one that's still warm, the one where Jesus sat with me, and I prayed for every single person who would watch this video. I prayed that you would have ears to hear. I prayed that you would have the courage to respond. I prayed that you would be part of the remnant that stands firm when everything else is shaking. And I felt Jesus there with me. I felt His pleasure. I felt His hope. I felt His love for you. And I heard Him whisper one more thing. Tell them I'm coming soon. Tell them to be ready. Tell them the wait is almost over. Tell them to hold on just a little longer. Tell them it's going to be worth it. Tell them. So I'm telling you, He's coming soon. Be ready. The wait is almost over. Hold on just a little longer. It's going to be worth it. Every sacrifice, every misunderstanding, every hard choice, every early morning, every surrendered idol, every narrow path decision, it's all going to be worth it, because you're going to see Him face to face. You're going to hear Him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." You're going to experience the fullness of joy that comes from knowing you chose Him when it cost you everything. And on that day, when you're standing in His presence, when you're seeing Him in all His glory, when you're finally home, you won't regret a single thing you gave up to follow Him. You'll only regret that you didn't give Him more. So give Him everything, starting today, starting right now. Build on rock, go deep, be part of the remnant. The storm is coming, but in Him, you will not be shaken. I love you. Jesus loves you. And I'll be praying for you every single day as you walk this journey. Now go. Start your 30 days. Find your tribe. Simplify your life. Surrender your idols. And most importantly, meet with Jesus every single day. He's waiting for you. And He has so much more for you than you've ever imagined.